Hi, friends. My name is Michael, and I'm going to be your book buddy today. But right now, I'm going to get into a story. The first one is with our friend, Little Rhino. Chapter 1, 3 Seconds. Little Rhino stepped up to home plate. He gripped the bat tight. The breeze in the treetops sounded like the crowd at a Major League Baseball game. He imagined that the bases were loaded. "Hit this one out of the park," he told himself. Rhino glared at the picture. Here came the ball. With a hard, steady swing, Rhino connected, and with the smack of the bat against the ball, sent a thrill through his body. "Nice hit," said Grandpa James with a smile. Rhino smiled back. He dropped his plastic bat and watched as the ball flew over the tall hedge. He hit it out of the backyard. Rhino had never hit that one that far before. Grandpa pitched to Rhino every day after Rhino's homework was done. Books first, baseball second was the rule in their house. Rhino always raced home from third grade, had a snack, and did his work. And then he changed into shorts and an oversized jersey, grabbed his bat and glove, and met Grandpa in the backyard. "You're really hitting them now, Rhino," Grandpa said. Rhino's real name was Ryan, but everyone except his teachers used his nickname. "Better get that ball before it rolls all the way to Main Street." Rhino laughed. He knew the ball hadn't gone that far. It was just a plastic one. Not like the real MLB baseball they use for playing catch. He had a plastic one because a real one might break a window, and that would be bad. Rhino trotted out of the yard. He stopped cold when he saw Dylan on the other side of the street. Dylan was tall and thin and always looked mean. He was hauling Rhino's ball. "Looking for this?" said Dylan with a sneer. "Come and get it, wimp." Rhino gulped. Dylan was the meanest kid in third grade. He teased everyone and often got into fights. "Dylan acts tough, but he's not," Rhino's thinker said. Grandpa James would always point to his head and say, "Your thinker is here to think the things you can't say out loud." Still, Dylan was bigger than Rhino. He was always sneering. His glasses sitting crooked on his face and his stiff blonde hair stood up on his head, making him look even taller. "Come on over," Dylan said. "Come get your baby ball." Rhino looked back. The leafy hedge blocked Grandpa's view. Rhino couldn't return to the backyard without the ball. He swallowed hard and walked across the street. Rhino reached for the ball. Dylan held out his hand and then pulled it away. Rhino reached again. Dylan twisted and waved the ball over his head. "Give me the ball," Rhino said. Inside his head, his thinker added, "You big bully." Dylan held the ball out again. "Take it," he said. Rhino put his hand on the ball. Dylan wouldn't let go. "Let me have it," Rhino said. "This is why you have zero friends, Dylan," he thought. "You're nothing but a big-mouthed bully." "Come on, just take it," Dylan said. He gripped the ball even harder. Rhino frowned and squinted his brown eyes. He pulled the ball, but Dylan just laughed. He was stronger than Rhino. Rhino heard Grandpa's voice from the yard. "Rhino," he said. "Is everything all right?" Dylan looked surprised when he heard Rhino's grandfather. He yanked the ball away, then threw it at Rhino. It hit Rhino's chest and fell to the street. Rhino scooped it up. Dylan was walking away fast. Rhino had never seen Dylan back down from something before. He didn't look back. Rhino stepped into the yard. Grandpa James had come closer to the edge. He raised his bushy eyebrows but didn't say anything. Rhino felt shaky. He didn't like uncomfortable situations. If Grandpa hadn't been there, Dylan might have started a fight. Or he might have kept the ball. "Ready to hit some more?" Grandpa said. He gripped an imaginary bat, flexing his arm muscles and making a powerful swing. Grandpa had always been very fit and athletic. Rhino slowly walked back over to Grandpa. "I think I've had enough for one day," he said softly. "Really?" Grandpa asked. "You usually want to hit until it gets dark out." Rhino shrugged. "I guess I'm tired." He felt embarrassed because Dylan had picked on him, and Rhino didn't get a chance to stand up for himself. He had let his thinker do all of his arguing, and then his grandfather showed up. Grandpa James probably heard the whole thing. Grandpa put his hand on Rhino's shoulder. 3 seconds, he said. Grandpa had taught Rhino the 3-second rule. When you're angry or feeling bad about yourself, take 3 seconds to be upset. Then, remember how great you are. Rhino let his shoulders drop. He blew out his breath. "Let's do some throwing," Grandpa said. He picked up a hard ball and watched Rhino grab his glove off the lawn. "Sounds good," Rhino said. After a few throws, he felt better. Grandpa tossed the ball high in the air. Pop flies like those were the hardest ones for Rhino to catch. The daylight was fading. Rhino set himself under the ball and watched it as it reached its highest point. The ball seemed to hang in midair for a second. Then it dropped. And Rhino made the catch. "Nice one," Grandpa said. Last month, when they started practicing baseball, Rhino almost never caught a pop fly. Now, he grabbed them every time. "You made a lot of progress," Grandpa said. "Everything takes time and practice. Catching pop-ups, hitting the ball." Rhino nodded. Then he remembered the clash with Dylan. He stared towards the hedge, and he replayed the conflict. "I should have told him to get lost," he thought. "Everything takes time, little Rhino," Grandpa said again. "Even dealing with a bully." Chapter 2. Dinosaurs and Pizza for Lunch. Little Rhino was hungry. He glanced at the clock on the wall of the classroom. It would be lunchtime soon. Rhino usually brought his own lunch, but Friday was pizza day, and Grandpa James had given him money to buy a few slices. "All right, class," said Mrs. Imbruglia. "Time to line up." Rhino and his friend Cooper quickly went to the front of the room. "Ryan and Cooper, you're always first," Miss Imbruglia said with a laugh. "We're always the hungriest," said Cooper. "And the fastest," added Rhino. They hurried to the cafeteria. "Cheesy pizza today, my most favorite thing in the entire world," said Rhino. Cooper handed a lunch tray to Rhino. Both boys could eat a lot of pizza even though Cooper was taller. They were both strong and quick. It was an even match when they played one-on-one basketball or had a race. Rhino tilted his head back and took a deep breath of pizza aroma. Let's eat with a new group today," he said. "Some kids from another class talk about dinosaurs at lunch. They asked me to join them." Dinosaurs and baseball were Rhino's favorite topics, but he liked learning all kinds of new facts, like how much an elephant weighs, or how far the moon is from the Earth. Rhino usually made friends easily. Cooper was shy, but he and Rhino always got along. Cooper seemed unsure about joining the new group. "We could talk about dinosaurs by ourselves," he said. "This'll be more fun," Rhino said. "You'll see." Rhino took a slice of pizza and a carton of milk. Then he saw Dylan getting in the line. Rhino hurried to pay. He got away from the lunch line and glanced back to make sure Dylan wasn't following him. Rhino saw the kids in the dinosaur group waving toward him. He looked around for Cooper and saw him standing in the middle of the cafeteria. "Cooper!" Rhino called. "Over here!" There were only 2 seats left at the table. Rhino set down his tray. Cooper slowly walked over and sat down in the last empty seat. Rhino looked at his friend and at the rest of the table. The girl next to him nudged Rhino with her elbow. "Hi," she said. "I'm Bella." She had a dark ponytail and a red hairband. Rhino smiled. He was a little unsure about joining the new group, too. He felt like a family of butterflies was flying around his stomach. "I'm Ryan," he said to Bella, "but call me Rhino." "T-Rex was as long as a school bus," said a boy with curly red hair. "Longer than that," said a girl in a purple sweatshirt. "No, it wasn't," said the boy. "It was 40 feet long." Rhino knew that was true. T-Rex could eat a triceratops in just a few bites, he said. Rhino took a big bite of his pizza slice. "Just like that," he added, even though his mouth was full and a string of cheese was hanging off of his chin. "They ate stegosaurs too," said the redhead boy. Rhino knew that wasn't right. T-Rex had lived millions of years before the stegosaurs. Rhino started to speak, but stopped. He didn't want to have an argument on his first date with a new group. He took a sip of milk instead. Bella nudged him again. "No stegosaurs, right?" she whispered. Rhino shook his head gently and smiled. Bella spoke up. "Stegosaurs didn't live at the same time as T-Rex." "They didn't?" asked the boy. Bella shook her head. "Nope." The boy shrugged. He started talking about how short the T-Rex's arms were. And after lunch, Rhino put his hand on Cooper's shoulder. "That was fun," he said. "Nice group, huh?" Cooper nodded. "Join in more next time," Rhino said. "You'll know as much about dinosaurs as any of us." "I'll try," Cooper said. They walked past Dylan's lunch table. "Hey, baby ball," Dylan said. Rhino ignored him. He felt like calling Dylan scaredy pants for the way he left so quickly when Grandpa James came over, but he knew that wouldn't help anything. Dylan was a bully. "What was that about?" Cooper asked as they entered their classroom. "Dylan was just looking for trouble," Rhino said. "He's always saying something mean." "That's for sure," Cooper said. "I'm glad he's not in our class." There were a few minutes left until the bell rang for the next period. Rhino looked through his desk until he found his dinosaur book. He checked some facts about T-Rex. Most of what the other kids had said was correct. Rhino knew a lot more, though. Rhino turned to Cooper, who sat behind him. He knew that Cooper would have a lot to say about sports or music or almost anything else when they were alone. But Cooper stayed shy and quiet around most other kids. "I know how that can be," Rhino's thinker said. He could talk all day with Cooper or with Grandpa or James or his older brother CJ, but his words didn't always come out easily like when he had to deal with Dylan. He chose Dinosaur Book to Cooper so he could learn some new facts. That would help Cooper to share what he knew at lunchtime. Cooper just needed some practice in talking to other kids. Maybe Rhino needed practice too. So he'd be ready next time Dylan tried to bully him. He wasn't afraid of Dylan, but he always seemed to be tongue-tied around him. Rhino needed his thinker to tell him what to say.